Hello. Welcome to the channel. If you guys haven't been here before, this is Hillbilly Crime, and my name is Elizabeth, and this is Sweet Tater. Say hi, Mom.
Well, hello, this is that old sweet tater. You know, I just want to be sweet.
Says she doesn't want to be an agitator or a dictator. She wants to be a sweet tater. So there we go. And it's I feel very glad to be back. I've not been on in about a week. Thank you for all the prayers, everybody. My son is doing amazing. It's like daylight and dark from before he had the surgery till now. He is doing great. So that's wonderful. Everybody come on in. We got Prissy Pants. Howdy. Mama Duck. Hello. Hello. Lady Di too. Donna West. Welcome back, Elizabeth and Sweet Tater. Yes. He's doing wonderful. He's in there yelling on his video games right now. So video games makes everything better. So how's your week been, Mom?
Well, I've had a great week. I was by myself Christmas Day, and I loved every minute of it. Me and them dogs watched that. We watched a show that's about. It's in a series, and it's got about 7 or 9 years worth. And shoo, I'm getting tired of it.
All right, let's see. We got Justice for Crystal McCrory Jones. Jana, thank you for your super sticker. Can you look at the Crystal McCrory? I'm going to write that down. Absolutely. We'll look at that. McCrory Jones case. The title that I put on here today was The Right to Remain Silent. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about this evening was how that the pros and the cons of that right to remain silent. I've had to learn my own hard lessons over the years, because there's always two sides to every story. And I always wanted to, if I was being accused of something, what's your first normal, natural reaction? You want to defend yourself. And in the criminal justice system, when it comes to a criminal accusation, the right to remain silent is usually the better way to go. And we've seen, just like when we were listening to the audio tapes in the Ben Fields case, I was just disgusted with how the detective conducted his interview with Ben Fields. And so many people said, that's this kind of interrogation technique. And they go to make them their buddies and stuff. And that's true. That's true. But I don't know. You got anything to say about this, Zelma?
Well, I think that probably works on some people where you're trying to buddy up to them. And probably it depends on how long the contact is. But in that kind of a situation, they do buddy up to people, and some people fall for that, but not everyone. And it's just hard for me to know what's the right thing to do, because if you buddy up to them and they tell you that they committed this awful old crime, well, we'd say that was okay. But then again, if they buddied up to them and broke that person's heart, that they confided their information in. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they sure don't care about nothing like that. I've had to learn my hard lessons over time. Anything that you say will and can be used against you. Now, I'm no lawyer, okay? We all know this. I do not have no law degree. I'm no lawyer. But that does not mean that we should not, as citizens and as lay people, that we shouldn't kind of understand what these aspects of our criminal justice system are, right?
You know, we used to teach people home economics so they could cook and, and learn about preservation of food and keeping, the house clean. And then we also had agriculture in the high schools. And that was so people could learn to grow some crops. And then when I was in high school, they had driver's education to help us all learn to drive. We don't have any of those things anymore.
Mm-mm. No. And a lot of people don't even a lot of people do not know how the criminal justice system works or the kind of tactics that police use, and
To get you to tell them stuff.
right. Well, I was shocked in the Ben Fields case. I was absolutely shocked that he did not ask for an attorney. His wife did. His wife was very smart. She asked for an attorney. That's why there was no interview with his wife.
Well, he didn't have an attorney because he knew how it was going to turn out.
Well,
That's the only thing I could think. The reason that you wouldn't have an attorney is because, they're your buddies and they've all promised you. And the deal you was getting was so good you couldn't even believe it. An attorney couldn't even get me a better deal than this one.
Well, and a lot of people are just we watch a whole lot of TV, y'all.
Oh, sure. I love them old crime shows.
So many people. I was watching one last night, and it was an interrogation, and he was a young boy, maybe 20 years old, but he just kept saying he had already talked. He had already told his side of the story, so they already had him locked into a story. And then he starts hollering, well, you have to get me a lawyer. You have to get me a lawyer. Well, no, they don't get you a lawyer. That's not how that works. So if they were to come and arrest me and take me in and they wanted to sit down and talk to me about something, well, the best thing I can do for me, I'm just saying, the best thing that I know to do for myself is to ask for an attorney. I need to have an attorney with me. Well, that doesn't mean that they're going to go out and get an attorney and bring that lawyer in to that room and sit there and have this conversation with you. No, that's not what that means. What that means is that they are supposed to stop asking you any questions, and then they'll move forward with whatever the next steps of their investigation is, whether that is to arrest you, to go ahead and arrest you on whatever charges that they're going to arrest you on, or they'll send you on off and then maybe arrest you later, or they'll continue their investigation, whatever. But if you already sit there and tell your side or try to tell your side so many times, it doesn't matter if you think that something that you've said was just something little, or maybe you didn't say it in the right manner, or you've got to understand that anything that you say can and will be used against you. And you better
You might change your story a little bit because you thought of something different. You know what I'm saying? So then if you change your story, then they automatically think you're lying.
Yeah, yep. Plead the fifth, and remember, it's them who have to prove you guilty. And remember, they can only hold you for so long. Don't bond out. Well, and all states are very different on how their statutes are set up and how their bonds, their bail systems are all set up. If they get tunnel vision on you, yeah. What are you chewing on? That sounded like something breakable. Hang on just a second. Anyway.
Well, when I was talking about home ec and agriculture, FFA, what I was referring to that now today we need to have a law course, in
Yeah.
schools. What do you do when the police picks you up? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because they don't know what to do.
No, and they'll pretend to be your buddy and they'll pretend to be your friend, and they're only there to help you. And, they just want to get to the truth and, this and that and the third. But if you're the one that is being investigated, they're allowed to lie to you. Police are allowed to make up anything they want to make up and try to get you to incriminate yourself. I wanted to read. It says, this is
Mama Duck is going to listen to the replay, she said.
Okay. It says the right to remain silent is a fundamental right in the United States legal system that protects people from being forced to incriminate themselves. It's based on the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which states that no one can be compelled to testify against themselves in a criminal case. And, a lot of times in these small backwoods court systems, they can weaponize. They can weaponize the system against people. And all it takes is to insult the wrong person. Not everybody's going to agree with everybody else. Just like this little old channel. This is just my little old YouTube, Hillbilly YouTube channel that has me commenting on a lot of these criminal cases. It's on crime. That's what.
And you do investigate them.
And that's what my education is in the criminal justice system. So, no, I'm not going to be like CNN or, one of these big networks. This is just my little old YouTube channel on criminal cases. Let's see. Sorry. And so, you're going to get my opinion, and not everybody's going to like my opinion, but for the most part of it, 99.9% of a lot of the comments and people reaching out is mostly positive. So if you only have a couple here or there that don't want to hear any of this stuff, that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to watch and you don't have to listen. But it should show people. It should show people in these positions of, our public officials that the majority of people are tired of all this corruption that is in our counties. It's not just our county. It's all over the state, and it's not just our state. It's all over our country. It's all over our world. If we just want to get all down into the nitty gritty of it. Somebody corrected me a long time ago. It's the love of money is the root of all evil. And that's true. Follow the money, y'all. Follow the money. It's always a factor. I wanted to read this article here. Let me pull it up. And it's called The Criminalization of Poverty in Kentucky. And I think it really, really.
Look at that one about chatting away. That's me. I'd tell you everything I know and what I thought too. I don't anymore.
Yeah. I know. A lot of people are just tired of the it's egos, like what I was trying to say earlier, and I kind of got distracted off of it. um it's people's egos, like when you insult the wrong person or if you offend them. All it takes, and all it really takes to insult or offend somebody who has a big ego, is maybe be a little bit better than they are at something, or they might be jealous of you for some reason. God only knows why. There's not really much rationality behind it. um but that's all it takes to get on somebody's bad side. And if they're in a real big position of power, or if you challenge them or question them, and I've seen, in this area, I've had it happen to me, that when I went to hire a lawyer to start fighting back, um, that makes them even more mad, because they didn't think you were going to go hire an attorney.
Well, read me this article.
And when people are too poor to be able to hire an attorney, or they may not have the education, to know that what is being done against them is wrong, that's where this kind of all fits in. All right. So it was August 2023 was when it was published. The Criminalization of Poverty in Kentucky, How Economic Crisis and Flawed Reforms Fueled an Incarceration Boom.
Where was this from?
This is from Vera. It's got 4 authors. B. Halbach Singh, Jack Norton, Stephen Jones, and Jessica Zhang. I don't know. Let me read it. In recent decades, Kentucky's carceral system has exploded in size, fueled by policies that criminalize poverty and substance use while prioritizing punishment over public safety. Amid significant economic restructuring due to the decline of manufacturing and coal extraction industries, local governments have attempted to turn their criminal legal systems into revenue generators. Now, remember, think about ARC. Think about these big rehab centers that we've all been seeing. Make what, 130 million last year. Entrenched financial incentives have served as powerful motivators for jailers, prosecutors, judges, and county commissioners to preserve the status quo of mass criminalization. During a time in which communities increasingly struggled with substance use disorders and needed real solutions to tackle this public health crisis, Kentucky's lawmakers continued to pass laws that allowed prosecutors and judges to impose harsh penalties for drug-related offenses. Through interviews, archival research, and data analysis, this report shows the consequences of the system on people's daily lives in a state where criminalization has become the de facto response to poverty and substance use. In 2021, the Vera Institute of Justice and the Foundation of Appalachian Kentucky held a series of community conversations about incarceration and the criminalization of poverty in several communities in eastern Kentucky. These conversations led to ongoing work on these issues across the region. The Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky created this short film that delves into the work being done by organizers and educators around the state, including Higher Ground, Apple Red Legal Aid, Project Renew, among others. And then it's got a video here. Let's see. Yeah, it's going to make me do that, so we can't watch it. All right, let me get back over here. By providing a deep dive into the structural, political, and economic factors that led to an explosion in the number of people in jails, prisons, and under supervision in Kentucky, this report sheds light on the broader dynamics that have contributed to the growth of carceral systems across the United States. In mid 2021, Kentucky had the 8th highest incarceration rate in the United States. Publication highlights detaining thousands of people for low-level felony and misdemeanor offenses has pushed communities in the current carceral system to crisis points. Policymakers need to reduce or eliminate criminal penalties related to poverty, drug use, and technical violations of supervision. That's, you can also add in here house arrest, probation, parole. All of that is included in this. Lawmakers should invest in safe and reliable housing and homeless services, expand access to community-based treatment resources for substance use and mental health, and invest in better public transportation. Okay. So, you got anything to say? Comment on that little article?
Well, I hopped on the phone to see if I could find that Vera Institute, and
Yeah.
they really are a cool place. I didn't know about them. I just wondered who had written the article. I didn't know who would be interested. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And the criminalization in Kentucky, and particularly in eastern Kentucky, where we have had so much coal. So many jobs based on coal, and now they're not here. So it's a pretty cool, and it's trying. They're bold and innovative, and they want to make race equality and inclusion is what they're after, and they want to be sure that everybody gets justice. They're interested in the justice.
Brianna's World. Elizabeth, I like it here because I'm from the mountains of Kentucky too. You do an excellent job, and I appreciate the work you put into your channel. Thank you, Annie. Thank you.
And I have often said the same thing that they're saying, that, the legal system is, the stack is that the stack is stacked against poor people when you get into the courtroom.
Well, and there's always a new push for how they're going to find money now. Whenever the coal industry really got shut down, that also stopped the coal severance money that
was correct. That came to the county. A lot of money.
And so now what we're seeing is money that's coming from some of these opioid lawsuits. I just read the article last week of the HEAL organization that the doctors down there at MCHC have went and asked all these little towns. So Neon gave them all of their money. I guess Jenkins gave them all their money. I think it was said Jenkins. And then Whitesburg gave them a big chunk of their money. And so you've got you've got a whole lot of money that's coming in from substance use, from whatever reason, whether it's grant money, whether it's lawsuit money. I don't know, but you got all this money now that's like, I remember when they learned that they made a peer support specialist a thing. And So you had these rehabs or these places, organizations that would send a new hire, a peer support specialist. They're going to send you to one of these training places, and they pay for your license, and they're the ones that have hired you. So then you work for them, but they're the ones who paid for your license. Well, that's how they started. A lot of these places started that with the peer support specialist, and then they got it to where Medicaid would pay for the peer support specialist. And so everybody was kind of all excited that they formed this new job, this new title, and now people can get paid for it. So you had people who were in treatment, who were in recovery, who seemed to be doing well. They would hire them on as peer support specialists, send them to training, pay for their training. It was like $400, I think, is what it was. Because I went and got mine on my own. I couldn't get a job doing it. So I thought, well, I'll just go pay for the training myself. I'll go get my own certification. But my point is that, Medicaid, everybody gets excited when they can get something paid for, So we've got all these places that I'm sure ARC probably is not the only rehab that has been investigated for Medicaid fraud. You end up getting in a lot more trouble, I think, over the Medicaid fraud. They seem to investigate that more closely than
Probably a bigger sentence than they gave people that, the sex abusers and those kind of people.
Well, it just blows me away. It blows me away.
Well, it does me too. It's just really sad that things start out to be real good and they help a lot of people, and then they just get corruption. I guess it's like a baked pie or something that sits around too long. Well, it's real good to start with, and then after it sits there a while, it gets really stanky and it'll kill you. I think that's what happens with some of these programs that we get going. They start out really, really good, but then they get infiltrated by people with not the same ideas as the founding fathers.
Yeah. Well, and something else too. When people have never had to pay the consequences for their actions, like if you've gotten away with a little something here and you've gotten away with a little something here and get away with a little bit more and you get away with a little bit more, and you've never, and if you did ever get caught at something, your parents come in and make it to where it all goes away,
Or
or
somebody just slap you on the wrist.
or your friends. Maybe you've got a family member who works in the courthouse, So if you've never had to face the consequences of your actions, then you think you're invincible. You think you can get away with anything and that you have the right. A lot of times people, it blows me away that they've not been humbled. Real good. I've been humbled over time, many times.
What was your comment, Tim?
I don't know. That's what I was thinking too.
Well, that's nice. I like Tennessee.
Oh, me too.
Oh, looky there.
Yeah, we got all kinds of comments. Sweet Taylor.
Whee! I'm right here.
Brianna's World. Hello, Donna West. How is everybody? Immunity needs limits. Yes, Mr. Tim Collins. I agree. No-knock warrants need diminished, and so do bad cops. I think you hit that right on the head. It's that immunity needs limits, because that qualified immunity or that good faith immunity, you know, I know theory and practice are two completely different things. So, like when I first started school, right, I wanted to work in the criminal justice system within recovery in some way, shape, or form, and I kept getting rejected and rejected. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go to school and I'm going to get my degrees and we'll get my education, and then they'll have to take me seriously then. So I went and I busted my butt, busted my tail to, you know, dean's list, president's list, graduated with honors, like that stuff. I thought that that meant something, that somebody gave me a piece of paper that said I was qualified. I thought that was really something.
Well, that works when you're in demand, like nurses,
Yeah.
when they go to school, and, other people in healthcare. And, where I taught mathematics all my life, I always had a easier time getting a job than somebody that taught history.
Right.
Because there were fewer of us in math.
Well, I thought that, most people were good, and that most people would do the right thing especially when somebody's looking. Maybe most people wouldn't do the right thing when nobody's looking, but I thought, well, when their feet are held to the fire, they're going to do what's right. They're going to do the right thing. And that's just not been my experience. Theory and practice are two completely different things. So, I put all this work in school and thinking that these were really important things. But when the practice has been built on something other than academics, because they're just now starting to want, like state police they want them to have a 4-year degree, but for the most part, law enforcement, if you wanted to be a police officer, all you really had to have was a high school diploma. You didn't really have to have any education. And so my point was, with immunity, we're giving these people that we really don't, that who aren't necessarily educated on things like ethics, ethical conduct, and stuff like that. How many police officers have you seen on TV on some of these body cam things that they don't even know a lot of the laws themselves? You know what I mean? They just don't seem like they're really educated on the law, but they're very educated on how the system works. On how they can use the system. Are you falling asleep on me there, Zelmy?
No, I was listening. that in some cases I've seen that to be the truth. That I really don't know much about the criminal system, and I really don't know much about the police or what they believe, other than what I've experienced. I've never been friends with a policeman, like fishing buddy kinds of friends.
Yeah.
I've never. So I really don't know how the mind of a person that goes into police work, how it works. But I think in the future we'll see, not because of anything that's happened, it's just that somebody will get interested in that and they'll start writing a big old thesis on it and go to graduate school.
Yeah. Well, I wrote mine on the fact that Kentucky jails wouldn't allow medically assisted treatment in their facilities, and they just would not. Like,
Well, I
not.
think they've changed that now, haven't they?
I think they have. I'm not
And
really
if
sure.
people don't speak out against that kind of stuff, it never gets changed.
Well, when I was trying to advocate for all of this stuff 10 years ago, I just made them very upset and mad. That's all my suggestions did. All I had to do was walk in the room and you'd see their entire heads just turn red. Donna West says, as a former addict, now sober for 10 years, they need to start having more rehabs, drug prevention, judging a person father addiction. It's so wrong. Addiction is definitely a disease. It is. It is. And there's lots of different forms of recovery. Um, when they first started, I remember I used to go to all of those HEAL meetings when they first started, and they were advocating for these peer support specialists positions, but they wouldn't hire anybody who was on MAT. Like if you were in medically assisted treatment, well, they weren't hiring you. All they wanted was people who were abstinent. You had to be in abstinent recovery for you to be hired on as a peer
Well,
support.
it's probably changed.
I'm sure it has now, but at the time, and my voice was, well, if you've got people who are in medically assisted treatment, then their peer support specialists, I mean, it's common sense, should also be in medically assisted treatment, because that's two completely different forms of recovery. You can't really have a peer support specialist who is abstinent be the guide for someone who is in medically assisted treatment, because their recoveries are completely different. Their experiences are different.
They'd get in too many arguments over which was the best.
Yeah, because that's just what ends up
So
happening.
they couldn't bond.
Right, exactly. But at the time, they all just thought I was stupid and didn't know what I was talking about. But now,
Well,
you
you
know,
talk too much. You know what you have the right to be silent.
you're
That was what we was talking about.
you're right. You're right. You're right. They have a ARC rehab here in Knott County too. And guess what? Judge Mullins was a judge here in Knott County. I heard that. I heard that they had Judge Mullins over there on cases. Debbie Lemons. Well, they need repeat offenders to have a job and to get the grants and pat on the back. So they have to allow a certain amount to play along. Yep, 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 yep. College polishes us off. That's about it. I've changed a lot of my opinions on. I used to be diehard higher education, but now I think that there's a lot more possibility within like skilled labor. We need plumbers, we need welders, we need people who um, know how to build a house. you know
And some of those people don't want to go to school, and they might not be good students. They may be smart people and know a lot, but they may not be good students in the educational environment we provide.
yeah,
If they was in a different kind of an environment where education was evaluated differently, they might be very successful. That book learning is only one part of life.
yeah. Well, and that was back to my point. Practice and theory are two completely different things. So I remember whenever I was looking for a job, um, they always, if you look at what their job duties are and what they're looking for, and whoever posted the position, a lot of times your education will level will equal a certain amount of experience. So if you have 20 years experience, that might equal a master's degree. Like, so if you don't have 20 years of experience in this field, if you have a master's degree, that will substitute for it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. That's
Uh,
how we get grandfather clauses. Somebody that's been doing something for 20 years gets grandfathered in when it requires, like a master's degree. You can
well,
grandfather them in from
so if they're
experience.
so if they're teaching all of these ethics, and if they're teaching all of this stuff, how to conduct yourself and behave as a public official, um, if they're teaching all of this stuff in theory in the classrooms, but your organizations or your police department or whatever is not, they don't have any access to that classroom, and they've just been that, it's been all built on experience and no academics. You see what I'm saying? There's going to be a really big, so when you try to
Yeah,
when you
there's
try
a
to
big gap.
when you try to come in and and um and put these theory these ethical things into practice, well, they're not gonna be very receptive to that. I know I said that in a really, really bad way.
Well, I followed it finally. You're saying that often 20 years experience does not equate to the amount of the experience that you get within a particular field by studying it 4 years in college. I mean, if you're out here on the job and you're getting your education that way, or if you go to college and you study about things there, you're not going to be the same.
Well, okay, so here's how I am crazily trying to relate it. So you've got these all of these positions come with all this immunity, the good faith immunity, and whatever, meaning that any actions that they took as a professional were should all have been done in good faith, meaning what was in best interest of the party or whatever, or the public or whatever. Well, if they've never been in a classroom and they've never been taught a lot of this stuff, like at most thing, even crimes, criminal behavior is a learned behavior. This is all learned behavior. Everything is a learned behavior if you really come down to it, except for like survival stuff. But so if you go trying to implement all of these policies and these ethical policies and stuff like that into a system that wasn't never based on it in the first place, you're going to have a lot more difficult time breaking in. All right. They make money for putting people into jail and poverty. Well, look at what we just found out with the house arrest system. I mean, they pretty much made their own rules. They didn't have a there wasn't a policy manual, there wasn't a procedure manual, there wasn't anything other than just a bunch of names written down on a piece of notebook paper, for their receipts. I mean, it's crazy. Inky Pinky. I love that. Ethical equals doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I'm not really that optimistic about that, y'all. Let's see.
Well, people have what it means to have the right thing. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you're in crisis mode, and in order to save a life, you might have to do something, a little bit strange or not quite right or whatever. So, it's hard to know what's right.
It
I don't
is.
know what's right.
Well, I said this before. We all make mistakes. They ain't none of us perfect. I say stuff all the time that I should have just kept my mouth shut and I never should have said. Um, but, we all make mistakes. But that's different. Making a mistake is something different than, a, a violent crime or
If you
taking
inflict
a
pain on other people,
yeah.
then that's not a mistake.
No, it's not. And that's all we're doing is talking about crimes here. Like, we didn't commit these crimes. We're just talking about them. And we have every right as a community and as community members to discuss crimes that have taken place in our community. Let's see. What did it say? Tim Collins, integrity only used when they dealing with wealthy individuals. 8 weeks in the academy is not enough when only 3 weeks of classroom and learning how to do a traffic stop and still not knowing what an unalienable right is or how to interact with others during a crisis. And I was I was thinking this earlier too about all of the rugs. Like, you look at all of the photos that were plastered all over the Letcher County Sheriff's Office Facebook page every time they'd have a big rug bust somewhere, or they'd pull somebody over and they'd find a great big amount. I mean, they were talking about a whole lot of weight that they were pulling off of Letcher County streets. Just if we just go by the photographs themselves that were posted on a regular basis, the amount of that stuff that was coming off the street was a whole lot. And anybody, we're all human beings. Even police officers are human beings. And you got to remember, I've said this before, what is the draw to be a police officer? Because it's sure not the pay. They don't make a whole lot of money, so there's going to be temptation there, especially when there's no oversight and there's nobody looking. And if there is somebody looking, they sure don't believe anything that they're gonna, that thin blue line baby's gonna protect you a whole lot. But so I just don't know. I would like to know where all the numbers are. Like, surely they have to have they have to keep some kind of logs on their evidence logs and stuff like that. Well, do they not have an agency that comes in every so often and like looks at that stuff? I mean, when are the questions raised? Like, who's supposed to ask those questions? Who's supposed to come in and just make sure everything's being done on the up and up? You know what I mean? What I'm saying, does that sound irrational?
Well, I'd like to know where they send that stuff. I mean, when they get, that stuff that they take off of the streets, they must package that all up somehow and take it to somebody on the state level.
Well, that's what you'd think, right?
You'd think that they had to log everything that comes in that they take in that type of the thing, and then they got some property room that they're going to put it all in. And then, like we got a paper shredder that comes around. They might have a truck that comes around through the different counties picking up that stuff that they're going to take and burn. I mean, they have to incinerate it or something, or it's going to go into the air, and some of that stuff you can't flush.
That's right. That's right. Jen has too many hobbies. I'm in grad school and have spent most of the last 30 years in higher education. None of my kiddos went to college. Everyone has different strengths.
That
Yep,
is for sure.
yep.
And there's a type of the building. If you got one person goes to the college, then the next generation can choose whether they want to go to college or not because they know what college is. But
Hmm.
for a lot of people, going to college was a way out of poverty.
Yes, yes. It
They were
absolutely.
they were smart enough to be able to go and compete with people that really were out of their peer group that had more training at home in these kinds of things,
Hmm.
more recognition, and had better toys to play with and all that kind of stuff. Probably had more awards in school. But then if the poor people want to get out of poverty, if they do school good in school and go into a profession, they can do it.
Yes, yes.
But then the next generation has more options.
Hmm. Well, and in recovery, you don't really have a whole lot of options. When people are going, um, when people start through their recovery process, there's several different kinds of whether they need medically assisted treatment or whether they do an abstinent form of recovery. But regardless of which form they go through, they still have these stages in their recovery. And some people go on, um, like I did, and get you go to school, you get your education, and then because the main um, goal, our biggest goal in recovery should be, in my opinion, um, productivity. Like, are you functional? Can you function daily? Can you take care of your kids? Can you hold a job? Can you wash your dishes? Can you keep your clothes clean? Can you keep a stable home? These are the kinds of things that we really, should focus our goals on for recovery, right? Because you end up having a whole lot of kids out here that don't have stable homes. So if that becomes our goal and our focus is to be functional, who cares if somebody has to take a pill every day to achieve that, right? I think we're beyond that argument now. Used to, people really look down on medically assisted treatment, but I think that we have come farther along now to where people have really seen the um, the positive effects that it that people's lives have taken, or the positive direction that people's lives
I
have
think
taken.
that it's becoming more acceptable
Yes.
every place.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, Brianna's World. My father was grandfather in when he hired on at the phone company. Yeah, he worked there 34 years and retired. He was line crew boss. Yeah, a lot of
Well,
people
he was a
got grandfathered
successful
in.
story.
Yeah, grandfathered in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we need people who are carpenters. We need people who, are plumbers and know how to work on our heating and air conditioners and stuff like that. We need skilled laborers desperately. I think I saw something one day that said that there were so many jobs, skilled labor jobs, really good jobs that were no, they couldn't fill them because they didn't have enough people that were um, certified in these skills. Infrastructure money went into unaffordable housing, and they piddled around on the streets to make it look like it was using the funds. hurts when you retire. Let's see. Government has zero authority to put its hands on people without an actual victim. Let's see. Shame X2. That money could really help people if they would use the research they paid for. I think I've gotten a little bit behind here. Love America. Isn't there some kind of state regulatory agencies that oversee police procedures and audits them, such as happens in healthcare? Well, I don't know. One of the other things I wanted to talk about this evening, and I haven't even mentioned it yet, was the plea bargains. You know, like how people, how are plea bargains intended, right? Or how are they used? So I guess I was thinking of that question on the side of the victims. And I wasn't necessarily thinking of it on the side of the defendant. So if it's on the side of the defendant, of course, a plea bargain is to get lesser time and negotiate their charges. But on the side of the victim, the plea bargain, sometimes if you've got children who are victims and you don't really want them to have to testify in a trial, they'll do that, you know, which, remember, I am no lawyer. All we're doing is talking about, as lay people, how we perceive and how we should understand these kinds of things, right? So I was watching this case. This woman, she was, her husband had been unalived, and they had charged her with doing it. Well, they didn't really have any direct evidence, so they offered her a plea bargain. She took the plea bargain, but then she went on a big 60-minute show with the news reporter, and she got on there and said that, you know, she was completely innocent, and, you know, she thought somebody else did it and all this and the third. And the judge really, really, really got upset with this interview because she was claiming she was innocent, but yet they had just agreed on this plea bargain where she's going to plead guilty. So my point, and that judge ended up pulling her plea bargain and made her go to trial for that. And she ended up getting a whole lot more time than what she would have gotten through the plea bargain. And so I was just wondering about the way that plea bargains, when they plead guilty, is that for accountability? We know what a no contest plea is. That means you're not saying you're guilty and you're not saying you're not guilty. You're pleading no contest, meaning, and I think that means that I'm saying that you have enough evidence to probably convict me, but I'm not pleading guilty. I'm not saying I'm guilty, but I'm going to agree that you probably have enough evidence to convict me at a trial.
Yes, that would be different.
Right. So that's a no contest, and that's different than pleading guilty to a charge. And so I was thinking about these SMEX charges, these SMEX offenses against these little kids. So whose duty is it? What's the prosecutor's duty in that kind of a case? Is the prosecutor's duty to get justice and truth? Because I think that's the duty, right? To get the truth and justice for the victims. What are you doing there, Zelmy?
I was telling my friend happy birthday.
Oh, okay. Tell him we said happy birthday.
Yeah.
Genevieve says during the pandemic, people actually had to stop, witness, research, and actually see what was happening in our nation. People actually started waking up.
That can be true.
Well, I think, some people don't want you to talk about any of this stuff. They
It's
don't want
true.
you to mention any of it. They don't want you to talk about it. It's a hush
Well, I
hush.
think that's called not wanting people to think for themselves.
Yeah. Well, and we've learned um over time and experience, all of us should have learned that you can't there's two sides to every story, and you can't just get your information from one source and one source only, because it'll become very biased in some way, shape, or form, in some direction. Well, I'm gonna let you go, Zelmy. You wanna tell everybody bye?
Okay.
I can tell we're losing your interest this evening.
Well, I think everybody has a voice, and I think there's a time and a place to use that voice. But I also think when it's in your own best interest to be quiet, you need to practice it. Now, that is a hard thing to practice because you really want to tell somebody just what you think of them. But what you have to do is just bite your tongue and say, that's not what, at the present moment, that's not going to help me. What'll help me at the most right here at this point in time. And often it's to say nothing.
Yep.
I had to learn that the hard way.
I have too, and I still, even though I know it and I've learned it several times over, I still have a really hard time
I'm sure
with
a
it.
lot of people think doing what we're all doing here, right here, is not in our own best interest. But I don't know that it is. There's so many people out there telling their opinions on Facebook and YouTube and everything that it's pretty acceptable to start telling your opinion like this. It's just when you're in a confrontation, you just have to keep your mouth shut.
Yep. Yep.
Bite your tongue, it's called.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Well, we're learning.
And I think
We're learning.
correction is a business, just like she said. We're wanting to build this big old
Prison.
prison, federal prison here in Letcher County, and I've been opposed to it all along because I don't want it in my face because I don't want to know. I mean, I know how a lot of people that are there are innocent. I know that a lot of people that are there are mistreated by the people that are hard to take care of them. And I just think that that system of incarceration is we need to move past that. There has to be a better way with all the methods we have of communicating.
Well, when the goal is money, is to make money, when the goal is profit.
That's right. And what you really, the goal should be to move people from wherever they're at into being successful members of society
Yes.
to where they can function within a society and not get in trouble.
Yep.
So they don't, they just, you have to educate people and give them opportunities.
We
And
want people
education takes many forms.
we want people to be self-sufficient. We want them to be able to hold a job and be parents and be good parents to their kids. You know,
That's exactly right.
we don't want to put children in foster homes left and right. We don't want to be pulling kids out of their homes. We don't want to be splitting up families. We don't want to be doing those things. We want to try and help people be self-sufficient. When you have the intrusion of government into your home to the extent where they provide your food, your financing, your roof over your head, that's a great dependence, you know, and that's the taxpayer. that dependence is on the taxpayer.
Well, I just wish the best for everybody, and I wish little kids didn't have to go through so much. Well, I'm going to bed.
All right, honey. Well, I
Yeah,
love
see, she's talking about Sweden there. In other places, I don't know what she's talking about there. Ask her some more.
Miss
What
Lady
makes
Di.
Sweden? Wait a minute, I'm going to look it up.
Okay, you look it up real quick. We'll look and see what Shamex says. There is logging, but in some cases it is signed off with more than one signature. Chain of items logged in and logged out. I'm sure some places are more modern than others, yeah. Yeah. PSYOP University grand jury will indict on anything. Well, we've all heard that saying that they can indict a ham sandwich. Well, they say that because the only people that is there presenting any case is the prosecutor. There's no defense attorney. So they can pretty much say whatever they want to in a grand jury proceeding. And if they want to lead the grand jury into an indictment, they sure can do that. And if they want to lead the grand jury away from an indictment, they can also do that. Lady Di, too. She says they are amazing and have lowered their reincarceration rate from 70% to 25%. I've seen a lot of those jail shows on some of their prison systems over there.
In Sweden?
Yeah, in that area. Sweden's not the only one, but they've got.
Yeah, I'm reading about it right now.
They've got several places over there that have pretty good systems that they've set up. You have to figure out why you are an addict, yes. And, just taking somebody out of their environment and sending them into like a rehab, an inpatient rehab. Well, that is a controlled environment. So usually people do really well in a controlled environment because they don't have any other choice. If you're in a rehab and you go in the front door, they're going to give you your towel, your sheets, your pillow, whatever, however they do it. They're going to send you to your room. They're going to show you your chore list. They're going to give you your daily chore. You're going to be responsible for getting up in the morning at a certain time. You're going to have to be at certain meetings at certain time. You're going to eat at a certain time. You're going to wash your dishes. They have everything scheduled out, and someone is telling you what to do 24 hours a day. That's a controlled environment. So usually people do pretty well. But then when you graduate and they say you're all done, here's your certification, and then you leave, that's where the problem happens, because most people end up going right back into the exact same environment that they left. And so in a lot of those environments, those homes, you've got people who are still using. Usually you're not the only one in that home that was using. So you're going back in there, you're trying to stay clean, and you've got an ex or a brother or a cousin or somebody who's out back, enjoying their buzz. And so all that does is drag people right back through it. Why do people usually try to cover some kind of pain? Because it's painful. Something's not going very well, and so you try to medicate. You try to self-medicate that misery and that pain. And some people can be functioning addicts, but most people are not functioning. And so anyway, that's just the that should be our goal, is to get people functioning in life. And the home environment is like the biggest key factor. We can't send people back into these chaotic, rug filled environments and think that they're gonna be successful in their recoveries. It's just a little bit too much to ask, I think. Genevieve, hillbillycrime@gmail.com, honey. You can send anything you want to my email, hillbillycrime@gmail.com. I was going to do a show last night, but man, my whole body was so sore. I think from getting home from the hospital, all that tension finally released in my body, and yesterday I could barely move. But we're back on it now, y'all. Back on it now. Every day we'll be doing our show again. Lady Di says it's intriguing to me, and at first one would think you are in prison for a reason, but what they did actually rehabilitates prisoners, unlike the U.S. Well, our prison system is not designed for rehabilitation. It's just not. It's designed to punish. I'm waiting for Zelma to give us a little rundown of what she's read.
Well, I'm just reading about the size of Sweden is the size of California. So that in itself makes for a totally different culture.
Yes.
And of course, there have been people that have lived in Sweden for a very, very long time, but but this country was not populated for as long as Sweden has been populated. So of course their laws are different and so forth. And they had the Viking influence as well. And then they like together, they live together and were in small communities. But the size of the United States and Sweden is so vastly different. But in reading the laws, they have some that are like the common laws, and they're pretty much the same as ours, freedom of speech and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Lori Sutherland says you have to be an addict to be a mentor because you have been there through that. Now, I'm a big advocate of that myself. I think if you've never been there and you don't have any idea what it's like, then you can't relate to anybody else, and they will not be able to relate to you, which is the biggest part of it. They have to be able to relate to you. It's not so much you relating to them. They have to be able to relate to you. And the only way they can relate to you is if you share your own experience, to some degree with them. You have to earn people's trust, and you have to build your trust. Trust is not something that is just freely given. Most of us know that. LS, hi honey. People must be held accountable for their actions. It really starts with parents. Do they ever say no or punish for bad actions? I'm not talking about spanking. It could be done without that. That's right. That's right, LS. Absolutely. Kids, I'm not trying to tell nobody how to parent. But Sometimes you can't fake good kids. You can't fake good kids. How many times have I known somebody who was some big churchy person, big time in church, big, just the most wonderful reputation. They're just such a good Christian person, and their adult kids are wild as bucks. Like, I don't know what happened. I took him to
Well,
church.
in my day, it was always the preacher's kids were the meanest and wildest. They always said that.
Well, and it's something I had to learn myself is if you don't live it at home, if you're only living it at certain times, well, then that's not teaching. You can't fake good kids. You just can't fake it. And being a good parent, sometimes that shows through your kids. I mean, I'm not trying to make nobody mad. I'm just saying.
Yep. I'm not responsible for what any of mine do now. They're on their own.
No. I'm just saying, a
Well,
lot.
it's now not.
Listen, I saw a picture one time of this mother standing there, and her tongue was coming out, and her little kid was standing right in front of her, and her tongue went into the back of the kid's head, and then it came out his mouth, and it was pretty much showing you what we speak is what our kids go to school and speak. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to say you're right.
Genevieve, I am not opposed to Christian-based rehab, but you can't force Jesus on a broken vessel. No, you can't. And people aren't gonna be ready until they're ready. And you can't shame them into being ready. Sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom 100 times before.
Well, I think I'm going to go to bed.
Okay, Mommy, I'm sorry.
Night.
You have a good night, and we'll see you tomorrow, okay?
Okay.
All right. I love you, Mommy.
Love you. Love all of you.
Bye.
Bye. I'm trying to get out of here.
There she goes. All right. Let's read some more of these comments before we let everybody go. I think basically anything is your own business up until it hurts or deprives another person, then it's a crime. Yeah. The ones that have no support system to go home to. Exactly. That's exactly right. That's what I'm saying. That's my point. You've got every single person's recovery is situational. Absolutely. Yes, thank you, Quinn. Thank you. Arriving late, but I'm so glad to hear your son is doing better. So just a little update on him. He is absolutely like a completely different kid. It's like daylight and dark from before the surgery to after. He had a gallbladder full of stones, and somehow the stones had dipped over into his bile duct, and it was full of stones. And now, once they took the gallbladder out and got all them stones out of there, he's just a completely new kid. He's all on the mend. He's not even taking no Tylenol anymore. I mean, he is absolutely healed. Thank you, Jesus. Praise God. Thank you for all of the prayers, each and every single one of them, because they've all mattered. The church is a place for broken people to heal. I understand what you mean, but he is the ultimate healer. That's right. And we all have a God-shaped hole that can only be filled by him. That's exactly right. And how many times, I'm guilty of this, y'all. I was one of them. How many times do we get our blessing and we start getting healed, and then we want to go help other people, right? And we want, and the rehabs kind of do the same thing. It's kind of the same concept. Um, you want to help others, you know. Well, we aren't even we don't even have ourselves together yet, you know. Like, one of the big rules with recovery is the 13th step. Like, if they do the 12-step program, well, the 13th step is don't get in a relationship with nobody for at least a year. And my experience, my own personal experience as an observer and as a participant, if you've got two people in recovery, especially early recovery, it ain't working, y'all. It just, you have, like, I don't know what the percentage would be, but I would say it'd be a big goose egg. Because the first time anything happens, you know, the first time somebody goes through a big stressful time, all you end up doing, one ends up dragging the other down, and you both end up falling then. So it's really important not to try to get in no big relationships. But so I kind of see them both on that side, you know. We have to let God heal us. We have to focus on us, on ourselves, before we can go out helping anybody else. Like, you know, a lot of people end up falling, you know. And so if you've got a mentor, or what did we call it, a peer support specialist, you know, if your specialist is out falling all the time, you know, we have to get ourselves together and kind of get a good track record under us before we can go out, you know, giving a big bunch of advice to somebody. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, it does all start at home, and it takes people making decisions to break generational abuse and blaze new healthy trails with their family. Absolutely. Absolutely. You also have to want to stop. Yeah. And, you know, we've said this before. New member. Yay. Thank you. We also have memberships. Y'all become members. We're going to have members only live chats too. Talking about the breaking the generational abuses, and people wanting to stop. So this new stuff, the math that is taking over today, it does so many things to people's minds that, you know, you're playing Russian roulette with just trying it one time, you know. And now they've got the big F word too, so a little bit of that can take you out and you'd never know it. Like, you don't know what you're getting your hands on these days, if you ever could. But now you really don't know what you're getting your hands on. Like, whoever you're buying that from, they don't know who they got it from, and they don't know who they got it from. It's dangerous. Genevieve, Jesus is the glue. You have to be willing to learn how to use the glue in knowing which broken piece is the keystone in reassembly. Yep. I used to want to share, you know, I used to want to give my testimony and share. And I remember my pastor, he's gone now. He passed away when COVID hit. But him and his wife both, his wife would tell me, you know, don't quit giving your blessing away. God has blessed you so much in letting you see, this just he dropped the scales from my eyes with a whole lot of things in life and in my healing. And I was always wanting to share that with other people. And she was like, quit giving your blessing away. That was a blessing that God gave for you. He revealed all of this knowledge and all of this to you. Nobody else is going to be able to appreciate that in the same manner and in the same way that you do, because they've not been in your shoes. They've not lived and experienced the things that you've experienced. So that it's not going to hit them like it hits you. And man, she was right. She was right. She was absolutely right. So sometimes, the Lord will give us a blessing and give us a little nugget that is just for us. And other people ain't always going to appreciate it, and they're not going to understand it. So sometimes we just need to keep our blessing. You can't fake good kids. Ain't that the truth? Yep. Miss Marnie, we have to lead by example as adults. That's right. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you. That's what I'm talking about. It doesn't start with police or the system. It starts with parents, not parenting. One thing I learned, which I already knew it, but one big thing that just kind of jumped out at me over this time that I had to go to the hospital with my son is how my kids are not done with me yet. My kids still need a mom, they still have to have a mom to clean the house. They still need a mom to cook food for them. They still need a mom to take them to the doctor. They still need a mom to sit with them during surgery. They still need a mom to come clean up after them. My kids still need a mom. They're 13 and 14 years old, but they still need a mother. And how many times do we think that they don't need us as much as what we think they do? Oh yeah, they do. Oh yeah, they do. Sweet Tater, are you familiar with a guy by the name of Kenny Baker? He was a famous fiddle player from Jenkins. He was in the Bluegrass Boys with Bill Monroe. I'm sure she does know of him. We'll have to ask her next time. But she's very educated on especially music from this area, so I'd say she probably does. I understand faith, and faith is why we're all here to begin with. I'm vacuuming up all these needles from taking the tree down. Truth hurts sometimes. That's right, it sure does. Yep. All right, guys. Well, I'm glad to be back. Thank you all for being here. We're gonna get back on it tomorrow, okay? And get back onto our nightly shows. But if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you do. Become a member. We're going to do all kinds of members only stuff. And, just join our daily chats and our daily shows. This is a platform where we can talk about different criminal cases and what we think about them and our own personal experiences with stuff like this. So, all right, y'all. Well, you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, LS. God bless you, honey. Thank you. All right, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a good night, y'all. Bye. Thank you. Happy holidays.